Welcome to the Music Wide Open podcast
The place for an honest and thought-provoking conversation
about music,
business,
life,
technology,
and the future,
for curious music enthusiasts.
and musicians seeking personal growth. I'm Ingolf Wunder.
And I am Paulina Wunder. When an artist, a musician, a soloist, goes on stage and presents his program, he inevitably opens himself up for both praise and criticism. Every artist and every creator becomes immensely vulnerable once he presents a piece of himself, something that comes from within, something that is an integral part of his body, mind, and soul. On the one hand, artists are expected to be sensitive. Sensitivity actually makes them better artists. On the other hand, their professional life requires growing a thick skin that helps them go on, helps them survive all punches, helps them build mental armor and keep a poker face. It is difficult to keep these two extremes under control all the time, being resilient, yet still inspired, creative, and true to one's own artistic self. The only way to escape the danger of many problems is to learn how to care less about what other people think. And this is what we are going to talk about today. Ingolf, how important is it for musicians to care less about what other people think?
Extremely important. I would say one of the most important things probably for anything to be successful in. But at the same time, so incredibly hard to do. Because we are social beings, we learn by observing others, by comparing ourselves to others, by, in a way, being judged by the parent as a first person. So I think it's inevitable that we want to know what other people think, in a way, and so therefore it's extremely difficult to switch that off consciously in order to be more successful.
Yeah, and also people give us advice all the time. It's a constant situation. Do this, don't do that. It can be extremely confusing. And I think especially for young musicians, young artists, who often don't know whom they can trust and whom they shouldn't professionally. They learn it step by step. Sometimes they don't question at all for a long time. Absolutely.
Because, to give advice is very easy. That's why people do it.
Yes.
And it seems, at least subjectively, that these people that don't have much to say give really often advice.
That's true.
And enjoy it. And if you yourself take serious what you do and want to get ahead, and especially when you're young, you need input. And if you don't have the right filter, or maybe that's gut feeling, or something tells you whom to trust or whom not to trust. Sometimes it's difficult to really judge that. And if you trust the wrong people, then...
Well, exactly, because one has to answer here a question: when is it important to listen what other people think, and whom to listen and whom to ignore?
This is, yeah, these are very relevant issues and questions, and so incredibly difficult to realize when it's happening in your life. It's not difficult to say when to listen and when not to listen, but how to detect it. That's difficult.
Exactly.
When to listen, of course, it's when it's constructive, when the criticism comes from people that really know what they're talking about. Real mentor's advice or something, although it's rare, but it exists. Then it has to be, of course, from a trusted source. and experience should be there. So people who give you advice should actually have done what they say, or at least have done it in a field with similar patterns, because it doesn't have to be the same field. But if somebody has a track record of having done some specific processes that he gives you advice on, then it's constructive, and then experience is there. And of course, whom to ignore, the casual critiques, and especially the negative voices.
That's true. We'll talk about that later.
So this is easy to list, but it's hard to detect.
But when it's happening, especially to young musicians, young artists, who just start their professional life for real, it is very difficult actually to determine what's needed to keep in your mind and what to dismiss.
Yeah, so don't forget, in this classical music field, or maybe not even classical, in any music field, usually the journey starts very early, and then it's at first the parents who do the selecting of voices to trust for you, and if that's not done right,
this is
and
exactly.
most of the time it's actually not done right, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, then there's people even don't think that, because once you're in this life of a professional musician, this is like a river. You don't have much time to think, you just have to act. And sometimes you're perplexed, sometimes you're overwhelmed, most of the times. And if you're not aware of the consequences of listening to wrong people, wrong voices, then it can have a severe impact on your life. By that I mean, for example, people who tend to listen to too many voices, they become less authentic. Then they start to hide their true self, to confront to others' expectations or beliefs, because they want to satisfy everybody, and it's simply impossible. True. And then they have troubles making decisions, because they don't know whom to trust, and they don't trust themselves anymore. And this way one can only lose one's own artistic expression or potential, or happiness, or health as well.
That's true. And also something popped up in my mind when you said wrong voices. Of course, that's true, there are wrong and right voices, but it also depends on the character of the person getting the info or the input, because some characters will get a wrong voice, and it will have actually the right effect for them, because they're defiant, or they
True.
Something else bugs them, and they do the opposite, which is turning out to be a good thing. Yes. Yes.
But there are a lot of very sensitive people who are as well, they're sensitive and as well weak at the same time, because it's not equal, but many sensitive people are simply weak. And this is dangerous for them, whom to trust and whom to listen to.
Exactly. And also important, I think, to separate, or not separate, but to keep these two columns in mind. Like, you have a column of business advice or what to do when in order to get somewhere up on the ladder of success. But the other thing is the musical input. And that's even more difficult, because that's the core. Because at the beginning you will not get business advice, but you will get the advice of how to play, how to hold your hand, where to make the crescendo, where not to make the crescendo, and why. And there we go into this whole thing of how music should be played actually. And since that's in decline in general the last decades, you have to be very, very, very lucky to get real good input from the start.
Let's put it this way. This decline as well comes out of this noise. There's lots of noise created around in business, in everything, in values, and so on. We'll talk about that maybe in another episode. But here I would like to ask you, was there a point in your own life when you listened too much to others' opinions?
Yes, of course. I think everybody has that. It would be weird if somebody doesn't have it. It would be super lucky. My luck was that I started late, which was, of course, not lucky in many ways, because you have to make up so many things. We mentioned that in the first episode already. But the lucky side of it was that musically, I, from the beginning, with an older mind already could parse all information that came into my brain, and then could judge by myself already better than a younger, 6, 7 years old versus 14 years old, where you can already judge more. So that's why, and of course, due to lucky coincidences, I had actually musically very little bad input, but this also came because of my risky choices, because I filtered out the possibility of getting bad musical input very early, which caused other problems. But that was good, yes. But when I listened to too many voices, was for sure on the business side, because the business decisions coming out of this, that I was not aware of how the business actually looked. I never got this education from my first teachers, and they were open about it, they just didn't know it.
And the one has pink glasses. It's a normal
exactly,
situation.
And then when it's about what to do, whom to trust, whom to take as a manager, which concert to take, which concert not to take, and stuff like this. There, I for sure there was a time, or were probably multiple times, where I listened to too many voices, and some of them were for sure not good.
Yeah, certainly. But generally, here coming back to the subject of, for example, criticism, which is what probably most of the people are the most scared of. And it's omnipresent in artist's life, in fact. Here, there are some severe life consequences, because if one continues to listen to too many voices, too many opinions, views, and everything goes deep, which often does in artist's case, then over time you miss opportunities because you're simply scared of taking risks and of new challenges. Then at the same time you start to attract wrong people who don't appreciate you, because what is you at that point? You is now a mix of other people's opinions and judgments.
That's right, but you're talking about criticism in general, or public newspaper like critics?
Everything, public and private, because you're surrounded by the same
yeah, that's
type
what I
of
mean,
people.
because I think these are different things, because
but you have one body, you feel the same.
That's right.
This goes deep.
That's exactly correct. But the personal criticisms, let's say, that come to you from a person face to face are maybe very painful, but it depends who that person is that gives you that.
Of course, but the public, when you have you don't face this person if you're
exactly
in public.
The critic is, I think it's slightly different. I mean,
it probably differs from person to person, because everybody feels differently. Every
exactly.
artist, every musician is different.
I'm not talking about the pain. Of course, the pain when you really, and this is also one thing one has to take into consideration, that how honest in that sense you are as an artist, like how much you really care, because not everybody cares the same way. If you really care, and these are usually the great artists, do care a lot about what they do, and if you have thought about things so many times and done your absolute best, and then somebody comes along and just tells you, I think you're stupid because you did this and this and this, and you know it's wrong, then it's very painful, obviously. But then again, it depends. Then if it's a public criticism, then it can hurt your career simply, and sometimes it's very unjust. But if it's a private criticism, then it always depends from whom it comes, right? If it's somebody who is in the way, or is on your way in an education path, or in somewhere, then it can hurt you, although you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. So, but I think important is also to really be honest to oneself, and really, this is what I do at least. Check this criticism, like honestly for yourself.
That's right.
Like, is
that's
something
right.
true?
That's true.
Of course, that's
right.
a dangerous path, because you can go to a negative spiral, which you absolutely should avoid.
And many people do.
Yeah.
Now, every musician, you partly started this, but I would like to give an example, because every musician at some point has to deal with the following situation. One prepares, often puts in lots of effort, time and sweat, lots of thinking, although some people think that musicians don't have to think, practicing, polishing and fine-tuning, and then someone who doesn't even remotely has any deep and real understanding, even if he or she wants to appear this way, spits out a judgment in public, an opinion that is mean, incompetent, sometimes rude and ignorant. I don't say all criticism are this way, because as you mentioned, some are constructive and they can actually help. But let's face it, certain people have a tendency to be sadistic and stupid, so criticism comes even easier to them. And one, as a musician, for his own sake, has to dismiss such a judgment right away.
Yes. The most important thing is when I say go check the criticism, right? There are several layers to it, right? Before you go into detail of what somebody told you in which bar, which is usually a sign anyway of a constructive criticism. The first layer of checking criticism is how much the person criticizing you explains why he criticizes you. Like if these public or these critics, newspaper critics or so, are so rare nowadays, that really can explain why something was bad and give actually a constructive explanation.
That's true. There are many words, but very little substance.
Exactly, and if that's not,
not everybody though, but unfortunately,
yeah, but if that substance isn't there, then you can dismiss it right away.
Yes.
I know it's still
painful for
totally
people.
painful,
yeah.
Because it still has an effect, and even if you don't know exactly what kind of effect it will have, somebody will be influenced by it that might be helpful for you or not. And that's the painful thing, because if expectations in that sense that something might or might not happen because you played somewhere and then somebody else spits, as you said, something out that is absolutely unjust, then it still will have some kind of repercussion, and you feel that although you don't know what it is, right? And that's what creates the stress. And it's hard, but then one has to be objective and grow a thick skin and just say,
which is difficult.
Very difficult, but this one has to learn.
Yes.
But it's about this first layer of judgment of the criticism, like
yes.
Your own judgment. If you say,
I think I can give here a piece of advice, quite a universal one for everybody, in fact. That the key is that what this or the other person thinks is none of your business. Focus on yourself, listen to yourself, listen to people whose judgment is valuable and honest, people who want you to improve and who don't impose their own vision on you, who want you to succeed, who really do, not because you can bring them some money, but because they care about you and about music. The rest you can forget. They don't care about you, so you don't care about them. That's simple. Keep your focus.
Exactly. And this is how we started actually as well, is that why it's so important to care less, is that you or one ideally has to grow whatever one started, right? Whether if it's a musical career or anything else. And that's personal growth.
Yes.
So in that sense, if there is negative influence from the outside that inhibits your growth, then it's only negative for you. And if one thinks about it this way, that you can only grow infinitely, basically, because we are what we are, energy, right? Then only when it's really like without any negative, any destructive
yes.
energies coming from the
Definitely.
outside.
Yeah.
And if one thinks about it in this helped me definitely, because everybody has bad days and everybody is sad for a couple of hours.
Course.
But they say, what was the forgot the number, but I think it was 7 hours or something.
For 6 hours or 7.
6 or 7 hours. Then
longer than that.
Then the brain gets used to, or the addiction process starts, or something like this.
To negative thoughts.
Yes. So that's why I always personally, even if you're in such a spiral, something because you have no sleep, lack of sleep, or whatever,
or lots of stress.
Yes, then it's human to whatever human is, but human to get in such a state. But if one is aware that, hey, limit it to 6-7 hours, because otherwise it's dangerous, that always kicks me out of the spiral.
Yeah, so exactly. Too many of the negative opinions or views can really, in a way, destroy your life, because you start to choose paths based on others' expectations and not based on your own passion, on this what you once believed in.
This is what I meant by
what you felt,
growth.
what brought you joy. Mm-hmm. And of course, I know some people might make such a mental shortcut here and say, one must pay the bills, passion doesn't pay the bills, following what other people want does. I don't agree with it, because, excuse my French, it's BS. There's always a way to stay authentic and successful, although success has, of course, many names, and for everyone it's something different. It's just whether you believe in this, what you're doing, and how you're doing or not. It's whether you have the right people around you who motivate you to go on, to work on your stuff.
Exactly. I mean, this is what I meant by the personal growth, that you have to do this, what you believe in. Otherwise, if you take the turn of doing something just because it will bring you money, then it might bring you money for some time, but it will make you unhappy in the long run. It will have other repercussions, health-wise, relationship-wise, or whatever. So money is not everything. And first of all, and second of all, out of experience and out of experience of other people that made it big, or not so big, but still very successful
and happy.
And happy. It always, the next bus always comes. So they say, so if somebody leaves in front of your eyes. But if you stick to what you really want to do and what you're really passionate about, then at some point the right bus will come and you will catch it and the money will come. Yeah. Period. This is happening. Even if it's just a matter of time. If you cave in before that happens and saying, I told you it didn't happen. Yeah, well, it might have happened just
stress and
5 minutes later.
Yes,
exactly. Because it always does. I think it's a law of nature or whatever it is.
I believe real fulfillment generally comes from pursuing what is true to you and what you believe in, what matters to you, and not from others' approval. Because in the long run, it will not work. Something will collapse.
And that should be actually in a working education system, which we don't have. That should be one of the main subjects from childhood on.
Well, there will be maybe too many successful people then.
And that's the point of the education system, not have.
I will come back here for because you mentioned the business and the career opportunities, because exactly the reason why musicians care what other people think is often also because of the business. Of course, the music business here, because opinions, even, or especially, it depends, of people who never had to prove anything themselves, like for real, to be naked on stage, not literally maybe, can have...
Some were literal.
Yes, there was even... Yes, that's true. Can have an impact on artists' career. But I would go that far that this impact is not because these people are so powerful, but because musicians take the judgment too deep and they keep quiet. I would say it's like growing a cancer inside. Each time you quietly suffer because of someone's opinion or criticism, you add another cancer cell.
That's correct. The ground or the source here is fear.
Of course, yes.
And as we know, in fear you can't build things the way you want to.
It's destructive energy.
Exactly. It It has to be on happiness or on love or
positive, simply
Yeah.
positive. And
But the fear is exactly what you said. I mean, like, let's say most of the musicians fear criticism, and once they got a bad one, fear the consequences of them speaking out against it, or again thinking what other people will think if I now say this or do that. Just because fear again is there, that one doesn't get maybe a chance that one
yes,
would like to get. And that's again fear. And I think out of own experience is that if you life in the long run, of course for everybody will be slightly different, but I think life in the long run gives you this what was meant to be
if you're
from the
honest to
beginning,
yourself, and
but you didn't know it. In
That's
other
true.
words, if you keep what you really like and really passionate about and really would like to do, then this what is anyway meant to happen for you will happen in a better way, or maybe even quicker.
so therefore you should dismiss this negativity that
Exactly.
comes from. But okay, but there's other side of the coin here, because there are some people who avoid listening to criticism, and at the same time they listen only to praise. It's maybe a kind of self-protection, to live in one's own bubble. Some even pay for that praise, but it also has some negative consequences, because you're creating something that is not real. It might protect you, but it is not real.
Yeah, I mean, negative consequences of such a thing is, of course, that it inhibits your artistic quality, simply. And here it's again the murky ground, and it's the problem, because people confuse artistic quality and business success. They think it's the same, and it's not. Never has been, and especially not the last 50 years. So in other words, if you pay for the praise, or if you do such things, then if you listen to the wrong praise, so to speak, then it means that you simply don't grow as much as you should artistically.
But you still might live in a bubble,
Yes.
where you believe you're, for example, great, just because.
But still, your artistic thing will suffer. Then
but you're not aware of that. Then you might be even happy.
And then it's exactly, but many stupid people are happy.
Yeah, awesome. Yes.
But what I mean is that if, of course, it works for you, and the let's call it economic consequences are
satisfying.
Satisfying for you, then it's sort of okay, right? It's still not right from a moral point of view, but
you don't serve the music, you serve yourself.
Yes,
your well-being, maybe.
But then one can also say, do hedge fund managers really, you know what I mean?
Doesn't matter.
But we are in arts,
music,
right?
exactly. Music is something that should
that's
be
it.
higher.
I mean, this is also actually connected to this topic, like the actual reason why we're doing things. This is what should balance things out in the ideal world. I know the world is not ideal, but we are led to believe that it is ideal, especially in the first years of the artistic education, because you don't know yet how the world works. That's why music is everything and art is everything, which should be all the time, but it then ceases to be because of experience, in many cases, not in mine, because I stayed strong. And that's another thing. You will be happier with yourself if you stay strong in what you believe in, and grow on that path. And this is the very important thing, because if you, and you know that I always tell you that privately, if I get new evidence of something that proves my opinions wrong of the last years, or of any year, then I'm the first one to say, wrong. Now I'm building on the new information I got.
That's true.
But if it's right, and if it keeps coming, that it's actually,
the patterns are confirming this what you thought
exactly
before.
Then it's growth, because then you know more, you know this, and it's still the North Star is still the same. Then it makes you stronger, and it makes you more happy. And this is beautiful.
Also, the thing is that we live in a time where we are constantly judged by others. And this judgment is immediate, because the judgment itself was always. But now people love to jump to conclusions very quickly, which makes the judgment even worse. They jump to conclusions because there's so much information out there, so much distraction, that most of the people don't have the time or capacity to focus and ask themselves, why do I think this way? Do I have enough information?
Yeah, but that's a general problem.
And why do I judge this person this way? That alone, look, we read the title of an article and we have an opinion about the whole thing right away. We read the blurb of a book and we know what we think about the book. We listen to music and we have an opinion right away just because we already, for example, know the name of the performer and we have our opinion fixed forever, especially when it's negative. Because when it's positive, we are open. We watch or listen or read with an open mind. But once we are negative towards something, we keep it this way and it's very hard to change our views.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a general problem, because this is the world we live in at the moment. The problem where there is so much garbage on the internet and in the world with that is because people don't have the time, don't take the time to think things through.
Yeah, exactly.
But they jump to conclusions and just, and next one. next article, next
artist and so on. But this is, knowing this, for example, as an artist, as a musician, one should realize that this speaks even more for not caring what other people think.
Exactly.
Because in most of the cases, they probably didn't even think it over.
And speaks more for sticking to your guns and doing this what you're really good at, what you care about and what you really like, because that in the long run will survive and will grow. And then those that haven't cared about it 5 seconds will then all of a sudden be there and think, oh wow, that's big. Because you stuck to what you did.
That's true. Perseverance here counts, but it's very difficult.
It is.
It's difficult to stay sane and deaf sometimes.
If it would be easy, everybody would do it, right?
That's true. That's true. Worrying about what others might think can dilute your judgment and your effectiveness and be disruptive to your leadership and your decision making. That's a quote by Anna Wintour, a British-American media executive and the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine. Although at first glance her profession has nothing to do with that of musicians, this quote pinpoints the effect that worrying about other people's opinions might have on you. While it's important to listen to others, it is crucial to be very selective as to whom you listen to. And it's even more important to listen to oneself. What you really feel, what you really want, and what you are deeply convinced of. Whether you're a musician or not, you need to be true to yourself and honest to yourself. Make your decisions, make your mistakes, correct them, learn from them. You have one life. Don't let other people take over the steering wheel with their views and opinions about what you are doing.